Now he's on a mission to make child poverty the government's #1 priority. And growing up without money is something footballing hero Marcus Rashford knows all about. Marcus says he is forever haunted by the sounds of his hard-up mum crying herself to sleep as she struggled to provide for her family. So it got us thinking, should you hide financial struggles from your children? Because obviously Marcus is talking about this from a child's point of view, but from a mother's point of view, going through financial difficulties, we all deal with it in our own different ways, don't we, Brenda? How did you deal with it? Because this is something that's not too far removed from you.
Yeah, I did hide everything financial from not just my kids, but from my family in general, because I didn't want them to know that I was struggling. But it was very hard because I was a mum with 2 kids, a single mum with 2 kids, and I wanted to work. It was important to me to work. But then I found that I was working to live because I'd get paid £500 a month and £350 of that is going on a childminder. And so you've got like £100 and something for food, for school clothes, for your utilities, for your rent. You know, there was a time when I just ran out of money. I had no money left, and I had an electricity meter.
Yeah.
And it goes into emergency credit. And then the emergency credit, I didn't have any money. And there was a time, the kids won't remember because they were babies, but I was just sitting in the dark because I had no money. I'm sitting there crying and I'm thinking, how am I going to get out of this? What am I going to do? You know, it's really hard when you think to yourself, you know, you want to try and do your bit for society. You want to try and put your bit in to help, but then you don't. I didn't really feel that I got the help and support back that I needed to be raising my children.
Well, Marcus, obviously, he's spoken very publicly, very bravely and strongly about, obviously, making child poverty the government's #1 priority. He obviously spoke out about school meals and this sort of thing. Was feeding your children something that you had to worry about, Brenda?
Absolutely, because they would eat the same thing twice, 3 times in that week. And, you know, I'd do either corned beef and rice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'd do tuna and pasty Thursday, Friday, and then Sunday I'd go round to my family and we have the big dinner. But that was how it was. And it's, you know, for me, it was even things basic like sitting on a chair. I didn't have sofas in my house, and it was only when I started working, I was an accounts payable manager, and I started working at this company, and they were chucking out some sofas, and I was like, oh my gosh, I would really appreciate that in my house so that the kids have somewhere to sit. And I remember I went and I asked the person, can I have this sofa? And they laughed at me, and I was like, why are you laughing? Not everybody can afford to buy something new from I can't even afford to get a second hand. You know, it's like, if you're giving it away, then I'd be really appreciative. And we used that sofa. That sofa was in our house for 2-3 years. We used that sofa and nobody knew. And I didn't tell the children because I didn't want them to be worrying. Yeah. And I didn't want them to have that stress. And I thought, I'm the mother, and it's my responsibility to look after them as best as I can. And I think I've done a good job. And, you know, they say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I think I'm a stronger woman for everything that I went through. But it's not easy, and I did appreciate having the free school meals as well, because I know my grandmother, she was a pensioner, looking after me and my brother. You know, and with that was an extra addition and bonus for her to help her out. It's just, I just don't know how some people survive with in this current climate, because the properties and house market's going up, but yet the cost of living, it's rising and going, you know, it's just out of the stratosphere at the moment.
Carol, this is something that you grew up in a very similar way to this, didn't you?
Yeah, my mum hid everything. We had no idea, really, how poor we were. And this was in the 60s, remember, before you had kind of, you know, automatic social security after my dad left. We had to rely on him to send the money to a court, which we had to go and pick up. And if it wasn't there, basically, there was no money. And, you know, we didn't actually understand any of this or realise any of this until one day, one week, me and my sister went down to pick the money up. And we must have only been about 6 and 8. And we went back to where my mum was working. And we opened the door, we walked in, and she sort of looked at us expectantly, and we said, "It wasn't there, Mum," and she just broke down in tears. And I'm pretty sure that was the first time I ever saw my mum crying, and we were so confused and upset, because when you're little, you just don't want to see your mum crying over anything, and this was over money. So we didn't know, but you know, later on we got to find out how much she struggled. She used to have to rely on the milkman, because the milkman used to bring the potatoes and the butter and the milk and all, and a lot of food. Then she used to have to get it on tick, as we used to call it back then. And he was very kind to do that for her, because he wasn't really allowed to. But if not for like the milkman and for very kind neighbours and people helping us out, I don't know what we would have done. There would not have been any food on the table. And my mum was working as well, remember? So, but she still had the rent to pay, and she had no other money coming in if this money wasn't there. And I'm telling you now, it was £10 a week at the time. I know it was the 60s, but that was it. So, yeah, I think she did a brilliant job. And most of the time we didn't know, because we didn't understand why we couldn't go swimming, even though it cost a shilling or something, 5p for all you youngsters out there. But it was hard, and it was hard. And afterwards, I just have so much admiration and love for my mum for what she had to go through. But that's half the reason I don't have kids, because I couldn't deal with that struggle if I had to ever struggle with anything. So...
Well, from 10 years of age, I was earning money, and then, as we all know, a couple of years ago, I had a bit of a breakdown. I had some mental health issues, so I never worked for 2 years, and I'd always been the breadwinner in my family. Mark obviously worked as well, but from such a young age, I was able to help all my family. So when I didn't work for 2 years, the money sort of dried up, and then I got myself in a terrible state. I was being investigated by the tax man, which didn't help my mental health problems at the time. And so I tried my hardest to keep it from the kids, because I thought I've put them through enough already with
And this is them as adults.
Yeah, this is them as adults, and I didn't want to have to burden them with my money problems as well. But luckily, there was repeats of birds with feathers, so I was able to get myself out of my financial situation.
Yeah.
But I think all of us at some time in our lives go through that money problems, you know, like...
Yeah.
And hopefully we won't have to go through them anymore, because there's so many people out there that are struggling now, isn't there?
Yeah. Before we go, I'm literally just hearing in my ear right now, Brenda, Marcus Rashford has actually tweeted you.
Oh.
So the producer's just telling me what he said, so... Linda, Brenda, there is so much power in your story that you should be proud.
Oh.
So there we are.
I want to cuddle her, but I'm not allowed
You're not allowed. Don't go anywhere near her, not you and your mustard and your stains and everything else.